Hello and welcome back to my channel. And today I would like to talk about the Year Zero engine. And the reason for that is that recently I've made a video uh, about Year Zero Mini that is basically, as it said, mini version of Year Zero or minimalist version of the Year Zero engine. However, I was surprised by several people telling me that they were not aware of the Year Zero engine. And then I just said, okay, do you know Forbidden Lands? And they said, no. Tales from the Loop? No. Then I realized, okay, maybe people need to know a little bit more about this amazing engine that is Year Zero engine and the games that we have available that use this engine. So my intention here is not go deep dive in the engine itself, but basically show you the basis for the EO0 engine. And of course, the EO0 engine is could have this could be applied in a different way in several systems. And I would just use the base of the SRD document that is available on PDF for free on the Free League website. So feel free to go there and get the PDF version of it. But let's talk very briefly about the base rule. So the core rule. So basically what we need to do in most of games, and I say most of games because we have basically two, I would say, versions or forks of the Year Zero engine. We have the ones version that relies on a pool of D6, and we have another one that relies on what we call step dice. So dice pools and step dice. These are the two forks that are available for this engine. The one that relies on dice pool, basically what we need to do is we need to build our dice pool, and we do this basically by getting the number of d6 that we have available for our attribute, our skill, and sometimes gear and modification. And then we build our dice pool. And then we just roll the dice. And if we have a 6 or more 6, we have a success. Otherwise we have a failure. If we fail, we always have the opportunity to push our rolls. And when we push, we can have some kind of negative effect on our character depending on the system. So let me just give you an example. The game relies, basically, the engine relies on 4 attributes: strength, agility, wit, and empathy. So let's suppose that we have a strength of 3. So 3 dice. And we have a skill that is for melee combat. And let's suppose that we have 2 dice on that. And I'm using a sword. And a sword gives me 2 dice, for instance. So I just grabbed all these dice and just roll it. And as you can see, I didn't have any 6, meaning that I couldn't hit successfully with my sword, and it's a failure. Let's suppose that I would like to push this. So there are several mechanics that allow me to push. So in Tales from the Loop, for instance, if I want to push, I need to get a condition in my character. Of course, one needs to have a deep look on the system to understand this better. But let's just assume that I would need to get a condition. I could be, for instance, as it is attack, it is related to a physical attribute, strength. I could say that I'm exhausted or that I'm tired because I will push, so I will get a condition, and this condition should be related to the action that I'm doing. So I'm going to push, and if I roll again, now I have a 6, but in order to have this success, I had to push myself. I had to do way more than I'm capable of. So I had to leave my comfort zone for that in order to have a success. So this is the reason that now I have a condition. In other systems, instead of having a condition, I could have a damage applied to my attribute, the related attribute that I'm using. For instance, if I'm using strength, it could be instead of having 4 strength or 3 strength, I would just lose 1 die after my action. So if I start my action by using 4 strength dice and I failed and I push, that I would reduce my strength from 4 to 3. And of course, for these type of mechanic, it's really hard to use everything with the same color. So for this reason, they use different color dice for 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 these kind of systems. One example is the Mutant Year Zero. So we have the 4 attributes here, and we have damage, fatigue, confusion, and doubt. Basically, this is our hit points in each attribute that we have, but if we push, we damage ourselves. And let's just give you an example. So let's suppose that now I'm going to try to, let's see, we have shoot. So we have shoot, and shoot is related to agility. So if I have 3 agility, so I would need to have 3 dice. And if I have some skills related to shoot, I would need to add the skill dice, the amount of skill dice. So let's suppose that I have 2 in this skill. So 2 dice. And let's suppose that I'm using a sling. So 1 die. So in this example, one can clearly see that this is my agility or my attribute dice or my base dice. This is my skill dice related to the shoot, and this is my gear dice. So I need to roll these dice, and I need to have a 6. And as I did, I have a success. Great. I successfully hit my opponent by using my sling. However, if I don't have any success, I would need to roll again, and I have success now. However, every once could affect me, my character actually, negatively. So a 1 in my attribute die mean that I damage my agility in this example. A 1 in my gear die means that I damage my sling in this example. So as my sling has only 1 die, if I want to use this again, actually I would not have any die, meaning that my sling is broken. And the same would happen with my attribute. If my attribute reaches 0, I am broken as well. And for the broken, we have several consequences that we could have depending on the system. But this is just one example of how we can use the D6 pool to roll our skills. On Alien RPG, things are a little bit different. We still have attribute dice, we still have skill. Actually, we still have attributes and skills and gear and so on, and modifiers, but we always use the same die. When we want to push, for instance, if I have 5 dice in my pool, and let's suppose that I didn't get any 6, and if I want to push, I need to add a stress die to it. So a stress die would be an additional die that I would have to my pool. However, if I roll a 1 in my stress die, I would need to check a stress table, a panic table. So this is basically the mechanic for Alien RPG. So I could have several stress die, but I would increase my dice pool, meaning that I would have more chances to get a 6. However, if I have a 1 in any stress die, I would need to roll the panic table. Cool. So this is the dice pools. We do have, however, as I said at the beginning, another fork called step dice. And step dice do not rely on the step dice mechanic does not rely on dice pool, but only in field dice. So we still have attributes, skills, and gear, modifiers, and so on, but we only roll the die that is related to our skill. So let's suppose that I have a D8 on my empathy skill and my empathy attribute, and I would like to manipulate someone, and I have manipulation of D6. So what I need to do here is basically roll these two dice, and I need to get 6 or more. So if I roll here, for instance, this is a failure. So I would need to roll a 6 in order to be successful. However, if I have a D10 or a D12 in my roll for some reason, and if I roll 10 or more, I would have 2 successes. I could even roll something like this, meaning 3 successes. And in both dice pool or step dice, if we have more than 1 success, we can have additional effects. In some systems, we have a list of things that we can choose from in order to give some meaning for the additional successes. For instance, in the Mutant Year Zero, if I roll additional 6s on a melee attack, I can inflict additional damage. And this is just an example. And this mechanic is really simple. So having a look in the Year Zero SRD document that only has 45 pages, so it's not so much, one can have all the information. So we have, for instance, the player character chapter where they explain the attributes in both dice pool and step dice approach. So just pick one of your preference. So some kind of health and resolve explanation. Depending on the dice pool, they suggest some kind of health and resolve, or in the step dice as well. But we do have some kind of variations like attribute damage, as we see on Forbidden Lands and Mutant Year Zero, or conditions, as we see on Tales from the Loop and Vaesen as well. So they talk about the skill rolls for both dice pool and step dice. The push mechanic we talk about this as well, and a lot of other stuff. There is a list of base skills. So in the SRD, we have force, melee, and stamina related to strength. For agility, we have marksmanship, mobility, and stealth. For wits, crafting, observation, survival. For empathy, healing, insight, and persuasion. And if we have more successes, we have some kind of bonus in our roles, in the results that we achieve. So cost of pushing, it depends on the system, of course, but every type of pushing mechanics in all systems is described here. Described here. So we have damage and stress. We have the attribute damage. We have the stress die. We have the conditions. The doom points. This is in Coriolis, if I'm not wrong. So every single mechanic. And even the panic table as we have on Alien RPG. Here they talk about the combat and damage. It's really simple. It's the same mechanic over and over again. So no need to reinvent the wheel. So basically, it depends, of course, on the systems. We have systems that have action points, such as in Coriolis, and I think it's Coriolis or Twilight 2000. I don't remember, but one of these two has action points instead of two kind of actions, because in the combat we mostly in most systems what we have is we have two actions, one slow action and one fast action, or they have different names. In Mutant Year Zero is called action and maneuver. So one can just basically perform a maneuver or a fast action and a slow action or action. And this slow action or action can be could become a maneuver or an additional fast action if necessary. So basically, a fast action or maneuver would be move, would be aim, and things like that. Get an item, and a slow action or action, as it is called on Mutant Year Zero, would be roll a skill, for instance. So, and we can basically use these two actions in our combat. Very interesting is that in some games we have the fast action as a reaction as well. So if you save your fast action, you are able to parry or block any attack against you. Of course, there are some variations depending on the system, but one just needs to roll basically in no position to try to avoid the damage. So let's suppose that someone is attacking me and I didn't act yet. So let's use the Forbidden Lands die for this, because this is a mechanic that we have in Forbidden Lands. So let's suppose that someone is going to attack me and they have, I do not know, 3 strength, maybe 2 on melee, and maybe a sword, meaning that they have this amount of dice, and they roll, and they have a 6 here and a 6 here. So before they attack, I need to say, I would like to dodge, or I would like to parry. So let's suppose that I said I would like to parry. I'm not sure, or dodge actually. I'm not sure if they would hit or not, but I need to inform first that I'm going to react to it before I see if they succeed or not. So in this case, 2 successes. Okay, great. So I need to beat this in order to fully dodge the attack. So let's suppose that I have 4 agility and 3 on move. So I need to beat 2 in order to be able to be successful. And I did. Actually, I have more. I have 4 6s in this row. 4 6s. So in this case, I beat the 2 and I could have an additional effect. So the GM could give me the opportunity to counterattack, or maybe another different effect. Maybe I could dodge and disarm them. I do not know, but definitely I would have a huge bonus on the results that I wanted to achieve by having this role. So they have this special dice for every single system. Basically, I would say for these colors are for the colors, not the dice. Are for Mutant Year Zero. They have this composition here of yellow being the base dice, and green the skill dice, and black as the gear dice. For the Forbidden Lands, the gear dice are still black, but the skill dice are red, and the base die are white. In Forbidden Lands, they have these additional dice type too. It's just specifically for Forbidden Lands. We do not have this on Mutant Year Zero. So as you can see, the base is the same for every Year Zero game. However, we do have several variations and additional rules that I would say increment or bring more flavor to the game. So I don't want to go further with this video. I think this is enough for our introduction. I want to play more Year Zero games in my channel, so I just wanted to give you this brief introduction about it. Of course, during the game sessions, I will explain them, the system a little bit more, and yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you for being here. See you next time. Bye bye.